My guest this morning is Daniel Gerard D'Elia. At 35 years old, I have achieved many accomplishments in my life, both academically and non-academically. It is these accomplishments that have helped form the person that I am today. I realized at a young age that life can be difficult, and in order to be successful, one must be willing to face struggles, fail multiple times, keep an open mind, and most importantly, never give up. Growing up, I was fortunate to have a few positive role models to help me through this, quote, journey, unquote, we call life. For as long as I can remember, I have always enjoyed helping people. For the past 14 years, I have been working as a special education teacher, and during my tenure, I have worked with a wide range of students, each accompanied with a variety of disabilities. Working with this population has taught me a lot about people, daily struggles we each endure, and most importantly, it taught me a lot about myself. I strongly believe that each day we breathe, we must strive to become a better person than we were the day before, mentally, physically, and emotionally. It is our free will and lack of discipline that prevents us from becoming the person who we were always meant to be. Our daily routines, or lack thereof, cause us to become stagnant, and in some situations may even aid in our regression. Let's take a journey together so that years from now you can look back and pat yourself on the back for the changes you've made and realize how far you have really come. Maximize your potential, release your inner awesome. Are you ready for change? Ladies and gentlemen, my guest this morning is Daniel Gerard D'Elia. Daniel, welcome.
Welcome, Mark. Thank you so much for having me on the show. That was a beautiful intro. And, back to the gospel song that you had played earlier, one of the things I always like to start off by asking the audience, right? I like to set it up. I like to paint a picture. But before you do that, you have to set up everything, right? And to pose this question, you had mentioned about a funeral, right? And because of the pandemic and all those things, funerals are not really what they were supposed to be, what they normally were.
Correct.
So I like to pose this question to the audience, for anybody who is listening this beautiful Saturday morning. What will my obituary say? That is a very, very powerful statement. Most of us really try to avoid thinking about that question, but I actually encourage people to think about that question. What do I want my obituary to say?
You know what? Absolutely. That's a very good point because, see, and I started to say that as I was making that commentary a minute ago, like many people will think it's morbid or sad. Yeah. They don't want to think it. But the truth of the matter is it is a fact of life. It is a reality. I close each show each Saturday morning with, may you live as long as you want and not want as long as you live. Live each day as if it were your last, because one day, no matter who you are, it will be. That's just the fact of the matter. And that's a wonderful question. What is it that you want your obituary to say?
Yes, it's powerful. It's uncomfortable. It's everything in between. But yeah, so I usually like to start off by, kind of posing that question, kind of set up the mind. The way that I teach, the way that I coach, the way that I do, anything, any aspect, is I always throw out those kind of curveball questions that kind of really catch you off balance, and that's the whole point. Life is a beautiful thing, but can also be pretty crazy. And, if you're not ready for it, right, just like preparing for any aspect of, let's say, sports or anything, if you're not ready for it, well, you're going to get knocked on your behind. The question is, are you prepared to be able to get back up?
Absolutely right. And Daniel is the author of the book, Invest in Yourself, The Value of Releasing Your Full Potential. And as you heard in the bio, he's also a teacher.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about. All right, let's go back to the beginning, because one of the first questions, I don't have a question sheet because it is very conversational, as you're going to see. But I do ask kind of like, where did the whole, now that you're an author, where did that come from? Is that something like as a child you aspired to be an author one day? Did you write a lot or read a lot as a child in school? Was language arts your thing? Or how did we come to the point now where you have now authored a book, Invest in Yourself?
I think that's it's not really it's a little bit kind of like kind of back and forth and in and out, kind of penetrated. Obviously, life, as we know, is a journey. So getting back to right.
We're breaking up. Are you on a cell phone? Because we're breaking up.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
There you go. Now that's a little bit better. Yep.
There we go. So getting back to my undergrad, so I actually am a William Patterson alumni, right? Pioneer. So,
I'm sitting on the campus. That's exactly where I'm at. I'm on the campus of William Patterson. So go ahead. Yes. All right. Go Pioneers.
Go Pioneers. Absolutely. So I actually went to school. So my undergrad is in special education. And I was involved on the campus. You know, I was part of the student government. I was junior class treasurer. I was part of the finance committee. And I was also president of Phi Delta fraternity, which I'm not exactly sure what the status is with the chapter right now, but I was president of that fraternity.
Right.
So a couple years down the road, I got my master's in and this was from it was virtually fully online. And this is from Walden University. It was around 2013. So in between, from 2007 to 2013, I had started teaching. I started teaching in about kind of like 2008. I got hired pretty much right out of college as a special education teacher. Teaching, right? We have a pretty good schedule. We do, right? So we get out early. We don't weekends. We have off during the summer. And once that kind of, I realized how good the schedule was, I had a lot of free time. I did. And, being an ambitious kind of person, I said, what do I do with all the time? So I actually I've always had an interest of doing, writing, directing, acting, and producing. And that kind of really brought me into the field of writing. Now, I was always interested in writing. I was pretty good at it. And it was, I've always had a pretty creative mind. But when you get into the whole writing, acting, and directing, you have to literally your life revolves around a script. So I had to become very good at not only interpreting scripts but also writing scripts. Right. So that kind of strengthened my writing skills, and the acting was a good thing. I have some pretty viral videos that I was able to do. Made videos I did for gym clowns. And the other one does over 1 million views each. So I was like, you know what? I really like this writing thing. However, I wasn't fulfilling enough, and I wasn't able to kind of be as intimate as I wanted to be with my audience. I liked making people laugh and feeling good, so that part was cool. But that brought me into my life coaching aspect. Now, as I was life coaching, right, I actually started doing that about 7 years ago, and I was like, I'm helping people, but it's kind of expensive, right, for people, and it's not as accessible for most people. So I said, I need to write a book, and it was something that I'd always thought about. I thought about it for about a year or two, and then just kind of put it to the side. And I said, I really need to do this because it's extremely important, the amount of information and value that I have to offer people. If I don't write this book, I'm literally not living my purpose, and that goes against everything that I preach.
Right. Now, let me ask you a question, only because I want to make sure that me and the listening audience can hear every word you're saying. For some reason, it keeps going in and out, or either sounding like you're going underwater. I don't know if you're like moving about. I don't know what you're, but 1 minute I have you like crystal clear, and the next minute it sounds like we're going under the sea.
All right.
There we go. Now that's clear now.
Perfect.
Okay. So are we still there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, good. So, all right. So then you felt as if, the writing of the book, which goes hand in hand, and I want to talk a little bit about the life coaching piece as well.
Sure.
In terms of, what is that all about? Because that is something that over the last years has come up and is very popular in terms of folks just need some support in terms of just getting through life in general. Like you said in your bio, like life can be a struggle, and we really have to really kind of figure out how we want to navigate through that.
Yes.
So, all right, let's do it this way. Talk to me about, and don't give the whole book away, but talk to me about what Invest in Yourself, what is that all about?
Okay. Good question. One, I interact with sometimes it's hundreds of people, and the majority of those people are just existing. Going through their lives, have a routine. Maybe they don't. A lot of them are just in survival mode. I think that most people, instead of conversation and motivation, really only spoke about what 10% of life really actually has to offer, which is sad. It's unfortunate. And I don't think it's necessarily the fault that happens in society when we're little, right? It teaches us that making mistakes is a bad thing. That really coloring outside the lines is frowned upon, right? Now, I personally believe that everyone has talents and that we've been blessed. A lot of times, people just want to play it safe. And because we play it safe, we end up usually doing something that we don't really enjoy, right? And that kind of big Paul.
All right. Hold on a minute. I think I'm gonna have you call me back or something because our connection is terrible, and what you're saying is so valuable.
Let's try something really quick.
Yeah.
Let's try this. Is this better?
Much better.
All right.
And I don't know what that is. If we can stay there, because like I said, we keep on going. I know how I am in terms of like if a TV is staticky or if a radio is staticky,
I get it.
And I can't hear, and that's what's going on here. I'm hearing you, and then all of a sudden we go underwater. But that's much better right now.
Absolutely right, Mark. Because what I am saying is it is extremely valuable, and I appreciate that. So yeah, we want to make sure that the audience is getting exactly the full effect. You're right. I don't.
Absolutely, because. What will happen is whenever you hear the playback, whenever I send you the link on the recording, you're going to say, why didn't he tell me this connection was so bad? So
no, you're doing your job and you're great at it. So
thank you very much. So continue on. Now that is very clear. Now go ahead.
Okay. So basically saying that I personally believe that every one of us has talents. No matter whether it's something small or something big, every single one of us has been blessed with these talents, right? But a lot of times we don't actually take the time to be able to attribute the attention that they require in order to build those skills, right? So a lot of people are just existing, and we kind of are in a heightened state of like being reactive, right? We're unfocused. Everyone is distracted, right? There are so many things. There's so much noise and everything going on constantly, right? That we're just essentially in survival mode. And, if we're constantly surviving, right, we're not actually taking the time to focus. We're not actually taking the time to examine and take a step back and look at life in a full 360-degree picture. And that's what I do. So I actually am able to break down, right, a person's life in different aspects, their mental, their physical, their emotional. Financial is a huge one for people, right? And I'm able to kind of figure out and say, what can we do to make things better, right? I have a personal philosophy, and it was in the bio that you had mentioned, that every single day when I wake up, my idea that I have in my head is, what can I do today to become a better person than I was yesterday? Even if it's something very small, I try to look at. Maybe you take 10 minutes a day. That's not a lot, right? There's 168 hours in a week, right? There's a lot of hours in a day. Okay, there's a lot of minutes in a day. If you take 10 minutes every day and you just take a step back and say, listen, what can I do better? How is my personal life? How's my work life? How's my health? How's my mental health? How's my physical health? Am I eating the way I should be eating? What's going on with my body? Listen to my body, listen to my emotions. And sometimes it's people like they say, oh, stop being, stop whining or stop worrying about that. Or, hey, yeah, you got that thing going on with the knee, but just let it go. Just walk it off. And we kind of have that idea in our mind where it's kind of like, oh, I'm just going to be complaining. And if I complain, well, it's not a big deal. It'll get better. And then we get to a point where literally we hit rock bottom. Everybody has their own form of rock bottom. Some of us really need to fall hard. Others, you kind of stumble. But I think that big part of saying, I need to be able to invest in myself. I need to be able to love myself is extremely important. And most people, they neglect that. I'd say women are probably the biggest culprits of that. I'm going to give everybody everything.
You're absolutely
and help
right.
everybody all the time. And it's a big thing. I see it a lot of times with my wife. I have a 2.5-year-old and an 8-month-old. So that's, we're in a very complicated part of our life.
No, you're absolutely right in terms of, and that whole mental health piece is so critical, especially now, because I know exactly what you're talking about. And you're so right that if you bottom out in any of those areas, it's going to be a process in some time. And so the best thing to do is try to catch it before you bottom out, because once you bottom out, it is a challenge. So a book like yours is where I see the value in helping people catch some stuff before we get to that bottom out point.
Absolutely. And that's the idea. So at this point, I released the book in February 2020. The pandemic screwed a couple things up, as obviously we're doing like in-person events and things like that. But I'm starting to kind of get more into those. But when I talk to people that have read the book, or when they find out about it and they kind of read the bio and they kind of read the synopsis, they say, I've never heard of a book like this. I don't, and I said, that's the idea, because it essentially it taps into parts of your brain that you don't normally tap into. And I think that was the whole point and purpose of writing the book. But anybody who has read it has told me how powerful it is. And they're like, I wish I had read this when I was a teenager, or I wish I had read this, 10 years ago. And I said, well, if you're reading it now, this is the time where you're supposed to have read it. And there's actually been some people that have apologized and said, I haven't gotten to it yet. I said, you're not ready yet. You're ready to read it when you're ready. And that varies from person to person. So obviously it's one of those books where I would never force anyone to read it, because you wouldn't be able to get the full effect. You have to be ready to read it. And that's the idea. So it's the book for anyone, but it's not the book for everyone.
Wow, I like that. It's a book for anyone, but not the book for everybody. And like you say, it has to be in your time. I mean, I get so many people that say, they get books, I can't wait to read it, and then they never open it up.
Exactly.
I really let it out. I can't wait to read it, and then, okay, well, did you start reading it yet? Well, no, but you just told me you can't wait to read it. Or like you said, in terms of, I wish I could have read this 10 years ago. Well, it wasn't meant for you to read it 10 years ago.
Exactly.
And so you're absolutely right. So what are some of because we want folks to purchase it. What are some of what are, like, to whet folks' appetite? What are some of the tips that you can give in a brief form to whet their appetite to want to know more by getting the book?
Absolutely. So I can first start off by saying that what you had mentioned about actually some people not even opening the book, and then most people, if they do read it, they're not going to finish it. I wrote it on purpose to only be 122 pages, right? I know people that have, no joke, started it and finished it within one day, probably like a good, 4 or 5 hours. I don't think it's intentional. I don't think it's actually a good book to read in that short of time. It's kind of like one of those things where you eat something, you digest, you kind of let it kind of do what it's supposed to do. You let it, ferment, right? And then you move on to the next chapter. However, everybody's got a different style, but some of the things that really stand out, obviously I'm going to be biased. I enjoy every chapter, every single one of them. I think plays a big purpose or has a big impact, but I'm just going to read off a couple of them that I think really stand out. So, chapter 7 is finding your why. Many of us, we don't know our why. When we're asked, or when I've asked clients or individuals, say, what's your why? And they're like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Well, like, what's my why? I said, well, what's your purpose? Like, why do you get out of bed every morning? You have the option of either laying in bed or getting up. Why do you get up? Why do you do anything? What is your why? And it's a big question, and it's very open-ended, to each his own. And it's one of those things where you really have to think about and examine. Positivity and retraining your mind. We don't understand as a society. You had mentioned the news at some point, how negative everything is. We react so much to negativity, and we think negativity is normal. So me being a very optimistic and positive person, people are like, that's weird. Like, why are you always in a good mood? Why are you always happy? And it's like, right. They're like kind of taken back. And I'm right. I'm like, that's not a bad thing to be positive. It's not a bad thing to be happy. and they always want to bring you down. And they don't realize why they do that. And, so positivity and retraining your mind is a big thing. Another thing is called it's called a growth mindset, right? Growth mindset is the ability to be able to take new ideas, new concepts, constantly learn new things, right? And that's how you grow, right? That's a growth mindset. You have an open mind. If my mind is open, I can put things into it. Most of us have a fixed mindset.
Correct.
Things are, right? Things are not going to change. That's the situation. I don't care about the facts. I don't care about anything else. This is the way it is. And we're so stuck in our ways. So the growth mindset versus a fixed mindset, very impactful. Time. When I always talk to individuals and clients about what is your biggest problem? What's your biggest concern? I don't have any time. I don't have any time to do anything. Ever, And it's so, unfortunately, that is the case for most people, but it's so wrong. That's not true. You make time for what you want. Okay, you're going to tell
correct.
Me you're going to tell me you don't have any time to read a 122-page book, right? Because you don't feel that you're worth, right, writing a 122-page book, but yet you are going to Netflix binge watch 7 seasons of a show.
That's correct. That's correct.
And it's like, you have the time. You do. You absolutely do. But you're telling me that you don't feel that you are worthy enough to be able to spend the time on yourself. That's what you're telling me. Because it's much easier to sit there and watch TV.
Correct. I know, and don't even get me started on TV because see, I'm not a major TV fan because of what you just said. TV is very passive. It doesn't require any action on the part of your brain. You can just sit there and just sit there. I mean, you don't have to do anything, just sit there. And in that time, you're not really getting anything out of it other than entertainment. Now, don't get me wrong. Every now and again, I don't mind being entertained. But when you have to read a book, you start activating things in the mind and processes that forces your mind to do something, opposed to sitting in front of the TV where your mind really don't have to do a thing. I mean, when they start talking couch potatoes, that's what they're talking about. You just lay there. You're not doing anything. But when you read a book, it's stimulating things in the mind. Even if, let's say, because in many cases, especially if I'm reading a novel or something, it would be like if I was watching a movie. For me, reading a novel is just as if I was watching TV because the scenery and I can place characters, whoever I want to be, especially if it's a book with no pictures, I can put whoever I want in the character. So it's just like watching a movie, but your brain is doing something totally different when you're reading a book versus even when you're listening to a book on audiobook. Right now, the fact that you're listening to this show is different process in your brain that's going on other when you're watching television. All right. So it's not that I'm downing TV and I don't think Daniel is either, but to his point, we have that every last one of us has the same 24 hours. And there's a meme or something I saw on social media that breaks down those 24 hours into seconds and minutes and so forth. And so we all have that same amount of time. And Daniel's absolutely right. It's what we prioritize and what we choose. That's why if you were listening earlier, whenever I said I didn't go on the computer last night in terms of emailing Daniel, and I said, no, I did go on there for my Spanish lesson. So I could have, as soon as I finished the Spanish lesson, emailed him. But what I did was as soon as I finished the Spanish lesson, turned up the queue and went to bed. So I didn't take the opportunity. It's not that I didn't have the chance, because I did have the chance. And that's what we're talking about. It's not that you don't have the time to invest in yourself. You just are choosing, for whatever reason, not to.
Yeah, absolutely. Which brings me to chapter 19, procrastination, why you do it and how to stop, right? So that is a big, big thing for many people, procrastination, right? And, what happens is we put things off, right? And then they build up. Now here's the stress, right? I know it's in the back of my mind. I know I have to do it. I keep putting it off. It continues to build, and now, right, that sometimes that all that stress, actually I start taking it out on others, right? So I talk about procrastination, why you do it, and how to actually stop about doing, how to actually stop procrastinating. Controlling emotions, right? And then also mistakes. There are so many people that I speak to and just the very, very basic things. Oh, I hate making mistakes. Oh, I hate looking stupid. Oh, why did I do that? Oh, we're so foolish. Where I say, mistake? No. not a mistake. It's an opportunity to learn and grow. You
Absolutely.
should be actually excited to make a mistake. I know it's weird, but you should, because that's how you learn. I always use the very, very basic example. If I had you sit there and do something that you already know very well, do you learn anything?
No. That absolutely. You really don't.
No. So as you can see, I kind of talked about, a lot of my, my background. I have done so many things getting out of my comfort zone, because that's how you grow, Mark. You get out of your comfort zone. You do something where you say, oh my gosh, this scares me so much. I would never do that. Go do that. Go do exactly
Absolutely.
that thing. Why? Because right behind that thing that you fear the most, that's actually what you're meant to do. It's really weird. Now, right now, you have an audience. I've spoken in front of 500-600 people, right? I've been, I have my background with acting, so I've been on television. I've seen a lot of these things. I do a lot of, videos on like my Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and things like that, right? Public speaking is one of those things that I was so afraid of.
And you're not by yourself. And because I teach public speaking, that's what I teach at the college level. And I'm always amazed when folks say, literally, not I'm trying to think of the other word. Literally, not figuratively. That's what I was looking for. That they would rather die. And I'm sitting there looking, because for me, public speaking is my thing. And I'm saying, like, wait a minute, you'd rather die than to speak in front of people?
Right.
Yes. And this is literal, not figurative. So in terms of, you're right, you're not by yourself. But your point is, you got out there and you did it.
Yes.
Now, that's interesting to hear that as a teacher, because I've heard, because I'm an educator as well, I've heard many teachers say the same thing, and yet teaching is nothing but public speaking. As a matter of fact,
100%.
When I heard you talk about acting, in all honesty, part of teaching is acting as well.
Yes. No, you're right. Especially nowadays, right? We're not only teachers, but we have to entertain, right? We're life coaches. We're within the education field. We wear so many different hats, and
no doubt.
You're 100% right. But that was a big thing for me. I was shy. I didn't like speaking in front of people. I remember my first day of teaching. My first day, I was standing in front of about 25 students. My face was so red. I was like, hey, everyone. Oh, my God, they're all looking at me. What do I do? And, obviously from then, I was like, but you kind of feel it. Like, you're very scared, but you feel it in your gut, and you're saying, there's something right about this, because you keep doing it, and you keep coming back. And then you love it. And then you just, you get more confident, you build your skills, and then once you're more confident, you're able to get greater self-esteem, and that's literally how things are done, right? So I, every single day, set goals to say, how am I going to get out of my comfort zone? If I can go out somewhere and I can speak to a total stranger, have a full-out conversation, and feel great about it, where other people, they say, why are you speaking to other people? Well, that's weird. And no, it's not. Life is a beautiful thing. There are so many people around us. You're supposed to socialize.
That's correct.
That's not a weird thing. Human beings are social creatures. Yeah, but I'd rather just sit home by myself, because this way nobody can bother me. Get out there.
Exactly.
Push yourself out of your comfort zone. Go talk to people.
As you brought that, years ago, I've been to France twice, but I was in Cannes back in the 90s. And I'm the type of person like you. If I see somebody on the street, I'm going to say hello or whatever. But when I went to Cannes, they said, like, you don't do that here. Like, I said, what do you mean don't do that? Because if you do that here, it's taken a totally different way. So it's like if you come up on somebody that's walking towards you on the street in Cannes and you say hello or bonjour or whatever you want to say, they look at you like you're strange, because they say they don't do that there. But I'm like you. Yeah. And that's the problem I have with the pandemic, in terms of us being created to be social, and the pandemic forced us to be isolated. Yeah,
you're right. And so, kind of not to plug it in, but to get back to my book, this is a really
that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's why we're talking.
No, but you know what? It's one of those things where, like, I really try to take a humble approach in life.
Right.
I don't, you know what I mean? So it's kind of, I always try to teach the lessons, do those things. And I'm one of those people, I'll give you everything, right? I'll give you the shirt off my back, money in my wallet. Here you go. And they're like, well, what do you want in return? I'm like, just
nothing.
To be happy.
Right, exactly.
Just for you. Like, if I can help you be happy,
there you go.
You know, I've done my thing. But you're 100% right. You know, and it has been a bit of a handicap, you know, with the virtual teaching, with wearing a mask on my face in person.
Correct.
Mark, I smile all the time.
Same here.
I'm
Correct.
very animated. And if you're covering half my face and you can't see my mouth, you don't know if I'm joking or I'm serious, right?
Correct.
You don't know. And I'm a very, right, I love joking, you know what I mean? And I can be sarcastic, you know, and that's the idea. And sometimes that is lost, you know, and that creates a little bit of a problem and a handicap. But, you know, you work around it.
Correct.
But you're absolutely right. So it's interesting, like I said earlier, because, you know, often the thing that we fear the most is the thing that we're meant to do. And it's crazy to think that, but it's so accurate. So I mean, ultimately there's 22 chapters, and I finished the chapter with, I finished the book with gratitude. This one is big, and there's a reason why I finished off the book with gratitude.
Correct.
I built everybody, I painted my picture, I did everything, and now I need to take a step back, and I need to appreciate everything that I have, everything that I've done. Right? As you mentioned earlier, it could be taken away in a moment.
Correct.
A moment. Right? So if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, if I don't, you know, go after things and am not ambitious, I don't set my goals and accomplish those goals and continuously, you know, move forward in life, if I don't do those things, right, I'm constantly going to be looking back in life. And the problem with looking back in life, well, is that I'm not living in the present moment.
Right.
Right? So many of us, we live in the past, and it's unfortunate. And we also live in the future. So we live in the past, and we live in the future. And if I'm looking forward, and I'm looking backwards, right, I'm not looking what's right in front of me. And that's the problem. Most of us are not living in the present moment. We're reflecting about, you know, pre-pandemic. We're thinking about trying to get through the pandemic. But what about today?
Right.
What about right now? What about this very moment? And I think that's a big thing. So the building of excuses and constantly building and building and building, and then we actually convince ourselves, well, it's a legitimate excuse. Well, maybe, sure, but...
Well, you're absolutely right, because, and interestingly enough, to me, it doesn't even surprise me anymore. Years ago, it used to surprise me, but you just said something. I opened the show reading from 2 different books, 2 different authors, 2 different publishers, 2 different years written, and so many times, and they're perpetuals, meaning that, you know, they're written just on the date, not the necessarily year. But there's so many times from the 2 different books, the message will line up with each other. And you just said that whole thing about the present, past, and future was what I read this morning in the 6 o'clock hour.
Wow, look at that.
Right. It doesn't even surprise me anymore because I know what it is. So it's just that message needs to be heard. There's something out there bigger than us. There's a force, there's power, there's God. There's something out here bigger than we are that connects all of this. So that gratitude piece that you just talked about is huge because it amazes me how people or how many people are ungrateful or they don't show gratitude. If it's not like when you do something for somebody that you're necessarily doing it for them to say thank you. However, whenever you do something and somebody does say thank you, it is a totally different experience than whenever you do something for somebody and they just act as if you haven't done anything. And so this whole gratitude thing that you're talking about is real. That in other words, the more grateful you are, the more you tend to get. The less grateful you are, the less you tend to get.
Yeah. 100%. You know, so a big part of it, honestly, is about perspective. You know, I do have to play devil's advocate sometimes for people, and they'll say, I'll say, so what's going on? Tell me your biggest problem. Now, I'm not trying to diminish your problem because I understand that it is a problem, but I'm trying to give you a different perspective, right? For example, oh, I'm poor. You're poor? Okay. So, did you eat today? Yes. Okay. Did you wake up with a roof over your head? Yes. Okay. Was there any concern about any danger or anything like that in your life? No. Okay. So, are you really poor? And it's kind of like, well, what do you mean? Well, I don't have money. Okay, well, so all those things that I just mentioned earlier, those things involve money. So are you really without money, or is the fact that maybe you're not using what you have wisely?
Correct.
Maybe that's a big part of it, right? So, and I think that is a key thing. Now, there are people that I've seen that have way less than Americans, right? I've
Correct.
been to India. India was a very eye-opening experience for me. You want to talk about poor? Do you want to talk about poor? Okay. Right?
You're right.
So, again, a big part of it is perspective. I've seen people, my life is absolutely horrible. Okay, so let's take a step back. All right. Are you on your deathbed right now? No. Are you sick? No. Okay. You have 2 legs? Yeah. Do they work? Yeah. Okay, great. So then there you go. You're already like 75% better than having more. You are better than 75% of certain population. Right there, just right there.
And you're absolutely right, because you're speaking my speak. You're absolutely 100% correct, and yet the same thing applies, like you were talking earlier about time. It's not that you don't have the time, it's how you're using it. It's not that you don't have any money, it's what you're using your money for. It's not that you don't have, like you said, the health design. You may not have everything you want health-wise, but you have enough to get up and go. And this is the thing, especially if you have your health. Because the health is kind of like the linchpin. It's kind of like the foundation. If you do have your health, all these things that you think you don't have, you can go out and make.
100%, Mark. 100%. That is what this book actually does. That is what this book convinces people to do. Because a big part of it, honestly, I can say whatever I want, right? But if I'm not convincing you, and you don't convince yourself, what's the point? I'm just I could have a conversation with the wall and I probably get the same response.
That's correct. Now, see, you're in teach just like I am. And every now and again, I have to do that with my students. I literally have to go out and get a rock and stand there in front of them and talk to that rock and let them know, look, I'm going to get about the same response from this rock as I'm getting from you.
Yes.
Might even be getting a better one. And you're absolutely right. It requires you to do something. It's great you listen. It's great you read. But now you're going to have to get up and do. And like you just said, you're going to have to be persuaded and convinced and then take action. And part of that, it really is about the lens that you're looking through. It's interesting you were talking about living in the moment. I've been in situations where folks have allowed their past to ruin their present and their future. Yes. And that's where the mental thing comes in. A lot of folks have gone mentally off based on events that's happened in their past that has now ruined their present and possibly their future if they don't get some help. You're
100% right. So a big thing, obviously, investing in yourself, there is a financial aspect of it, right? Right now, I already have my master's, so I'm actually pursuing my master's plus 45. So I'm doing this 5 courses at a time. I just finished my first 5. Right now, I'm in the process of my second 5, and then obviously, around like the summertime, I'll be doing my last 5. I'm an ambitious guy. I set a goal. I do it. I don't let anything get in my way. If it gets in the way, all right, I find a way to go over it, through it, around it, whatever. I'm going to set my goal and I'm going to accomplish it. But the point of that is obviously it costs money to do this, right? It does. All right? It's not free, right? So I have to pay for these things, right? But it is investing in myself. I do this, I get more credits, I'm able to move up when the level change and move myself so then I can get more money, in the long term. Getting back to my point, right? This is the whole purpose of this. This is the instant gratification aspect of it, Mark. So many people, they want that result immediately.
Correct.
Right? I want to be able to do something and be amazing at it right away. And it doesn't work that way. That's not life.
Correct.
Sometimes I'm going to suck really, really badly for a long time.
Right.
Right? Until eventually it kind of clicks. But that's a big aspect of it. I have to be able to actually do it. Right? You were mentioning that you were learning Spanish, right?
Correct.
Now, is that Duolingo you're using?
It is, and it's interesting.
I love Duolingo.
So I do too. I'm like 538 days. I got a streak going. That's why I didn't. As tired as I was last night, I went on real quick to do the lesson. But you were talking earlier about the making of the mistake when you're doing something you know how to do versus. And with Duolingo, where I'll get frustrated is whenever just like you said about you get frustrated because you made the mistake. But the truth of the matter is when it forces me to do it again, to do it correctly, that's when I'm doing the learning. Because the phrases that I get real quick, it's just like, well, I really didn't learn nothing from that because I already knew it. But whenever I get hung up and I write down the phrase or either I translate it the wrong way and it forces me to do it again, as frustrated as I get, I do. That's where the learning is coming in. And you're absolutely right. You were talking earlier about the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. Yeah. Fixed mindset is I'm not going to get any better no matter what I do. The growth mindset is exactly what we're talking about in terms of, okay, I made a mistake and I will learn from the mistake. And that's something I tell my students all the time. Look, I don't have a problem if you make a mistake. I do have a problem if you didn't learn from it. If I sat here and I just told you what the mistake was and showed you why you don't want to do that, and then 10 minutes later you do the same thing again, that tells me you didn't learn from it yet. Eventually you will. You just didn't learn from it yet.
Now, that is a key word that you just said, right? It's a small word, only 3 letters.
Correct.
But it's extremely impactful. So there's been so many times I've had a conversation with people, and I'm like, so have you done this? They're like, no, I've never done it. And I said, you mean not yet? Just using that word,
yes,
literally changes the whole game, changes everything, right? So what you mentioned about learning a language, right? I've actually used Duolingo for years. I've learned some Italian using it. I've learned some Spanish using it. I've learned some Polish. My wife is actually from Poland, so she speaks it fluently. So I have used Duolingo, and it is uncomfortable, but I am learning through the process. So I actually really like making mistakes. I really like the learning part of each mistake, right? Because I take a look at it and I examine it. And getting to chapter 11 is discipline and consistency. If I do something, right, and I have the discipline to do it, like you said, you have a streak of like 500 and something days, right? That's right there. That takes discipline and consistency to do it. Is it easier just to put it away and do something else? Yeah, absolutely. Much easier, right?
Yeah, it is, because I was sleepy as heck last night. But I said, I forced myself to do it, and that's why I didn't email you. Because it was like I forced myself to do it, and I went to bed. But I didn't want to lose my streak. And so you're right with the discipline.
Exactly. So that is that so many people, they lack the discipline. And the reason why they lack the discipline, right, is because it's hard. It's so much easier to do other things. So I always say, if you want to be successful in anything, whatever it is, first you got to do it.
Correct.
And the second, you got to do it consistently.
Correct.
Right? Even when you're tired, even when you don't feel like it, even when you got 1,000 other things to do. For me, I've always made sure that my physical health is extremely important, right? So I eat right, and I eat for sustenance, Mark. I don't eat because everything tastes good.
Correct.
Everybody's backwards with that. Oh, and every meal needs to taste amazing. I need to savor no. Your body needs nutrients. It needs fruits. It needs vegetables. It needs healthy things. Sure, some of those fruits and vegetables can taste very good, but that's not my number one priority. My number one priority is how do I give fuel to my body, right? Also, the physical aspect, I need to make sure that I work out, because if I don't work out, I don't feel well.
Right.
And if I don't get enough sleep, I also don't feel well.
Right.
So these things need to be a high priority. It's like neglecting certain parts of your car and being like, well, I don't really care. It's not a big deal. Yeah, well, eventually it's going to break down.
That's correct.
And then when our body breaks down, Mark, we get upset at ourselves.
Correct.
Oh, this is terrible. Why can't I don't want to be sick right now. This is a terrible time to be sick. How do I get better? Oh, now you want to know how to get better? Now. You didn't care for the past several months when you were eating like garbage, not getting sleep, stressed all the time. Now that you're in the hospital, now you care.
Correct.
Right?
You're right. I mean, it's like, and the thing is, listening audience, those of you who are listening, the things that Daniel and I are talking about, as much as I hate the cliche, but the truth of the matter is, it's not rocket science. No. It is everyday common sense, but common sense is not common. And the thing is, sometimes we don't think about it till someone brings it to our attention, like we're doing this morning. Some of these things that Daniel is talking about, the light bulb may go on in terms of, you know what, he's right. I never thought about it like that. Like that whole thing you just talked about with the eating for sustenance. Now, I was talking with our food services person the other day in the cafeteria. And so I generally eat what the students eat for lunch. I usually eat whatever they eat. So we had spinach the other day. So you want some spinach? I said, oh, yes. Spinach is one of my favorite vegetables. And she looked at me like I had 3 heads. Really? That's one of your favorite vegetables? Yes, spinach is one of my favorite vegetables. So you're absolutely right in terms of doing the things that we need to do. And I laugh when you talk, because I know people that have gotten sick that neglected themselves for years.
Sure.
And now they're having a fit because they're sick. And your analogy about the car is right. Don't change that oil if you don't want to. After some time, it's going to let you down. Don't check on that antifreeze or let it break down. Whatever, like he just said, whatever you neglect, eventually is going to catch up with you and break down.
That is 100%, Mark. So again, it's interesting because whether it's students or it's clients or friends or family, as somebody who kind of, I think differently, obviously. You think differently, obviously. And being a person who's like awake, right? When in a world where everybody's kind of sleeping, right? It's difficult. So if I see that somebody's not doing something, appropriately, they're like, just mind your own business. I'm like, guys, I do this because I care.
Correct.
I could be doing 10,000 other things. I can. Okay. But I'm addressing this issue because I see it. I don't know if you're aware of it. And if you are aware of it, that's on you. But at least I have to do my job, right? To say, hey, listen, this is something that I see. This is something that I've observed, right? Let's work on it.
So let me ask you a question. Did the book, and I think I heard the timeline, but did the book come before you were teaching or while you were teaching?
Okay, so my book came, it came in February of 2020.
And you already, because I'm going somewhere with the question, depending on how you answer. So
I've been teaching, yeah. So
okay, so how much did what you experienced in the classroom with your students influence the book?
I would say probably because my clients they ranged from anywhere from 11 years old to mid 50s.
Okay.
It's a pretty big range, but it's kind of like what you said. A lot of the behaviors, right, and a lot of the things that I noticed were in kids and also in adults.
Correct.
So it's kind of like the adults never really grew out of the habits or the bad habits that they had when they were kids, and they just kind of brought it into adulthood.
Correct.
So what percentage? I would say, probably about 60% is probably from the students, and then the other, 40 is from more adults. Because here's what happens. It's the same problems. It's just in a different, let's say, uniform.
Correct.
Same problems, just looks a little different. And that, the procrastination or the making of excuses or the, self-defeating behavior, the negativity, I can't do this, So a big part, obviously, is the mindset thing. And if you don't learn you don't correct those things when you're younger, like you said, you bring them into the adult life.
That's right. And then you have that. And that's one of the messages we try to get across to the students as well. Like, we're trying to nip some habits now. Matter of fact, you have the luxury of practicing the habits here that we're trying to get rid of, because if you do them out there, they're going to be so much more costly. And I tell my students all the time, it's one thing sitting in front of me as the principal. It's another thing of having to sit in front of a judge. And 100%. I said, let me tell you the difference. I actually care about you. The judge is not.
Mark, but you are so right. I was actually having a conversation with a student the other day. Now, the student is not applying themselves as much as they should. So I said, listen, right now, I said, you're in high school, okay? And people care. There are people, teachers, counselors, there are people that actually care.
Correct.
I said, when you become an adult, no one cares, okay? They don't. And because no one cares, right, and since you don't care, well, that's just a recipe for disaster, right?
Correct.
I said, so you need to be able to care, right, so that when other people around you don't care, you can still stand on your own 2 feet.
There you go.
Said,
Bingo.
But it should never make any sense that I care more than you do about
Bingo.
you. It makes no sense.
Bingo. I mean, bingo, bingo, and bingo. Absolutely right. And that's, again, there's a couple of things. One, if you don't love yourself, it is going to be difficult for someone else to love you. Matter of fact, if you don't love yourself, you might not even allow somebody else to love you. But what you just said about caring, if you don't care, and you already coming into a world who doesn't care, that is a recipe for disaster. And that is the message we try to get across, like you say, at a young age, so that you can go into the older age prepared. And in some instances, it really is a hard sell. Now, as I was reading your bio, and for listening audience, I hope you've been with me since 6, but definitely hope you've been with me since 7. My guest this morning is Daniel Gerard D'Elia, and we're talking about his book, Investing in Yourself. All right. And I saw here in the bio where you said something about it taught me a lot about myself.
Yes.
The daily struggles. Talk to a little bit about, now you're teaching and helping others, but how did it help you?
So it's interesting. You being in education, you can agree with me that when you teach something, you get better at it yourself.
Correct.
Right? It reinforces your skills, and it kind of makes you look at things in a different way. Because if you can teach something, right, you become more of an expert. Obviously, you're in that expert category, and the more you do it, the better you get. So when I was working with clients and I was building in goals and looking at, schedules and being able to structure. So I always say there's 168 hours in a week. How do you
There you go.
those hours, right? So I look at everything like completely different. I look at it as the hours, right? So I break it down. All right. What are 5 important things that I need to be able to do in my daily life through my week, right? And so many people, when they're looking at their schedules or we're looking at things like we talked about earlier about the time, it's always a big complaint. There's no time. Well, there is. Here's a slot here. Okay. Now, if I add up, let's say 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 10 minutes there, and over 7 days, that's 70 minutes right there.
That's correct.
An hour and 10 minutes. You're telling me that you don't have an hour and 10 minutes throughout the week? Well, if I want to start something, right, I want to be able to finish it. Okay, well, maybe not exactly in one sitting. Sometimes things have to be broken down. Now, I was a huge procrastinator. I knew that. Also, organization-wise, I wasn't the strongest. So as I was kind of coaching others and, working with them, I was starting to see some flaws in myself. And my perspective is, listen, we all have certain strengths. We all have certain flaws. But just because my flaws are flaws doesn't mean they have to remain that way.
Correct.
Right? Maybe they just need more attention. And that's what I really started to look at. So there were certain things about me, right? This is the truth, no joke. I wanted to be a millionaire by 30. That was my goal. I turned 30. I looked around in my life and I said, wow, I am definitely not a millionaire. There are a lot of things that I need to work on, right? And so what I did was I trimmed the fat, Mark. I cut out a lot of things that really were not helping me, right? And things that were holding me back and preventing me from, I'm going to throw in the word, releasing my full potential.
Correct.
Right? And I really started to think okay, what can I do better on a daily basis? Maybe I need my morning routine. I was going to bed sometimes, honestly, we have to wake up early for work. I was sometimes going to bed 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. I said, this is terrible. This is a horrible thing to do. I feel sluggish. I'm tired. I'm not even awake for several hours in the morning. I said, this is not good. I need to be able to change that. So I started focusing on that. Right. What else do I need to introduce into my schedule? What are some other habits or things like that I need to be able to break, right, and then reintroduce, positive things. So that was a really big part of it because I am not the type of person who is a hypocrite. If I say I'm going to do something, I do it.
Correct.
If I give you advice on something, that means I myself am already doing it. And I did not like being a hypocrite in some respect. I'm saying, okay, well, you got to work on this. You got to go to sleep earlier. You got to eat better. You got to work on this, more discipline on that, practice this. And then once I kind of really started to kind of, help out my clients, I saw their progress. I said, well, I should probably do some of these things myself, right? And that is a big part of it. So I've really been able to, take myself to a whole nother level. I finally, on paper, have reached that millionaire status. I've acquired 3 investment properties. I started doing this, and I acquired these since 2009.
All right, now.
I have my life coaching business, right? I've done some pretty cool viral videos, as I mentioned earlier, on YouTube. I've been able to grow my base. I've been able to grow a lot of things, and this is a cool thing. My bio is actually not completely updated. It should be more updated. Right. I tried to do it the other day, but I was doing it from my phone. I'm actually 37, right?
Okay.
35. And so, yeah, when you were reading that, I was like, oh boy, I got to update that. So I'm actually 37, and I'm very, very honored and happy to say this, and this is as humbly as I can, that in a year from now, my wife and I will no longer have a mortgage.
Oh, good for you. God bless.
And this is, that right there just, is able to, a whole weight is lifted off my shoulders just knowing that, right? So when I say these things, and a lot of big thing that I've learned, Mark, is when I'm sitting there and I'm trying to explain to people about the value of investing in themselves, and I'm explaining to people about how they have to take more attention and kind of put the fun stuff aside, quote unquote, for a little while, and give attention to the things that are appropriate. Read your books, take your courses, get that level change, get that promotion, do the things that you need to do, right? And your life will get better. It will improve. What you put into something, it will give you back. I promise. In every area, in every aspect, right? So that's a big thing. So I try to not be the type of person to brag. It's something that I'm insecure about because I don't like to do that. It's I don't even want to mention these things, but I have to be able to reinforce of here's the advice that I'm giving you. Here's the value of it, right? Because I am actually living proof that if you invest in yourself, if you actually take a step back, examine your life, say, what can I improve on? What can I make better? And you do that, great things are going to happen. It actually is a formula.
You're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, as we come down to the end, it's interesting because going back to we were talking about time, money, so forth, folks will invest in everything and everyone else except themselves.
Yes.
So they'll invest. For those of us who do the stock market or whatever, or mutual funds, they'll invest in that. For those of who, whatever it is, like you said, the fun stuff, we'll invest in that. But you'll invest in everything and everyone, with the exception of something that really, truly matters in terms of your being able to move forward. Now, it was interesting you were talking earlier about getting out of the comfort zone, because I am a true aviation, they call it AV geek. I love flying, and aircraft is that and the other. Have flown, served time in the Air Force, have been around planes a lot. And so one of my teachers came in and said, you know what? She had just turned 50 at the time, a couple years. This was prior to the pandemic. She says, would you, let's go skydiving. And I said, that's a good idea. We're going to, and we were just getting ready to arrange it when the pandemic hit. And we were going to arrange it because we left out of school that March. And we were going to go that spring, and we never did get a chance to go. So we were saying the other day, we still got to go do that skydiving thing. Now, as much as I love aviation and planes, like you were talking about public speaking, nervous and scared, I'm a little nervous about it. But you know what? We're going to do it just from the standpoint of what you were saying in terms of the thing that you're fearing. Get out there and do that.
I agree with you. You have to do it. So there's two things that I just want to comment on. One is there's actually this place in Paramus, where it's it's an indoor one.
Yes.
Right? So that might be your trial run, right? that's like the experience before the real experience.
Exactly.
So I would be open to doing something like that. But the second thing is go to YouTube, look up the Will Smith skydiving video. It's hilarious, but it's enlightening. He talks about it, and he actually does. He goes through the experience of skydiving. But, Will Smith, he's a funny guy. He kind of walks you through the process. But then he also tells you how amazing the experience is overall.
Right.
So
I remember when George Bush Sr., he was like 90-something whenever he went. George Bush, it was, George Sr., not W, but Sr. He did it like in his 90s. And so before it's over, me and that particular teacher, we're going to go up, because then what I did was, because this is another piece too, whenever it's something that it is you want to do, kind of let folks know so that they can hold you accountable.
Yes.
So what I did was I announced it to the rest of the staff. Me and Miss Such and Such said, we going skydiving. So at some point, folks are going to say, did y'all go yet? Did you go yet? That's going to be a motivator too.
Absolutely.
So I'm saying all that to say, back to, and I'm getting ready to turn the mic over to Daniel to promote. But sure, whatever it is in terms of investing in yourself, do it. Do it, because what better investment is there than yourself? I'm going to leave it there. At this point, Daniel, what I do is I turn the mic over to the guests in terms of them being able to promote. You have the opportunity to promote the book, your signings, your business. You can promote anything with the exception of a dollar amount. That's the only thing you can't give on the air is the cost. But with the exception of cost, anything you want to shout your wife out, you want to shout the 2 kids out, you want to shout whoever else you want, whatever you want to do for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to turn the mic off and it's yours.
All right. Sounds good, Mark.
You're up.
All right. So in the beginning of the show, I posed a question to the audience, and I said to think about what will my obituary say. And I think it's extremely important that hopefully, if you've stayed with us the whole time, that you probably had a lot of ideas going through your mind, right? And that answer, right, is not always going to be a definite answer, and it will try to change over time. But you have to think to yourself, what do you want your obituary to say when the time comes, right? And they're reading your sermon, right? And they're going through it, and they're talking about your life. What do you want them to be saying, right? That's an important thing. Second thing, I want to say thank you so much, Mark, for having me on the show. Thank you to my parents, who are amazing, people, and have kind of really sculpted me into the man that I am today. My amazing wife, right? My 2 beautiful boys, and my brothers as well. Big thing is obviously to invest in yourself, and the best way to do that, you can pick up a copy of my book, Invest in Yourself. The Value of Releasing Your Full Potential is available on Amazon. You can find it in paperback and also on Kindle. You can download it right away. Another thing that I would encourage you to do is to check out my Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, right, if you're on it. It's all one word, at Release Your Full Potential. You can also check out my website, releaseyourfullpotential.com. If you are interested in, working with me through life coaching, that's a great opportunity. Reach out. You can catch me through email. It's at releaseyourfullpotential@gmail.com. And I am always available. I'm always a message away. And I want to finish off by saying, always make sure to invest in yourself every single day. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate the honor, Mark. It's been an awesome experience. Like I said, you can always feel free to reach out to me. I'm always available. Send me a message. Send me an email. Check out my website. Check me out on the social media. And have a great day. And think about it. What are you going to do today to become a better person than you were yesterday?
I know that's right. Well, I thank you so much. And again, I apologize for not getting that confirmation or confirming email last night. But like he said, he's not a hypocrite. He's a man of his word. He remembered the email from a couple of weeks ago because it had the instructions in there. And he called right on time. So I thank you for that. Really, that question that he just asked, that Daniel asked in terms of what you want your obituary to say, another way to look at that is, what do you want your legacy to be? What legacy do you want to leave whenever you leave this place we call Earth? So look at it that way, whichever way you want to look at it. But what legacy do you want to leave? And I can tell you, I think I downloaded your book, but I'm not sure. If I haven't, before the day is out, I will have downloaded it in my Kindle. And if it's the number of pages that you said it is, a good chance I may have finished reading it by tonight. But if not, certainly. But I'm going to download it. If I didn't do so already, I might have done it when we first talked. But if I didn't, by the end of the day, before the end of the day, I will have it downloaded on my Kindle because I want to read some more about that. And I could not agree with you more in terms of us being able to invest in ourselves. I'm looking at the picture of your family. You have a beautiful family. I see your wife, and I think the picture is with your oldest son, Lucas.
Yeah.
You were doing a book signing there. So I wish you and your family the best. I definitely want to read the book. You will get a copy of the MP3 link and the YouTube link. And once you get them, I email them to you. You feel free to do whatever you'd like with them. You want to put them on your web pages. You want to shoot them out to people. It's up to you because once I send them to you, they're yours.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, my friend. Have a wonderful school year and everything else.
Thank you so much, Mark. You have a great day, great weekend, and keep investing in yourself.
Thank you much. Take care.
All right.
All right.